Chat, how we doing? About to roll, man. About to roll. Maybe. Maybe if my hold up. Here we go. There we go. Now we're loading. All right. Bam, man. Man, we're live. We're back. Let me sit up a little bit, man. This is our first off-season show. Yes. It's crazy. It's already here. I don't like it. I don't like it yet. Okay, I'm not excited yet that we're already here, but we made it. We made it to the first off-season show. This one won't be. Okay, this one won't be that deep. All right, but this is kind of like the first moves of the offseason, I guess. You hear from Dan Campbell on a Monday. Talks a little bit about what the future is going to look like, it seems. Also, we got some of the first roster moves. Choppy sound. Okay, let me address that. Shout out to the refresh. All right. We should be good. Let me know. Let me know. If we're not good, I'll reload it. But anyways, the first roster moves were made. We got to hear from Dan Campbell, and we got to hear from a lot of different players. Now, most of them are going to kind of say the same thing, so I don't know how much there's actually news here. Most of the guys are like, yeah, I'd like to be back. So I don't know how much we actually gained from what we heard from some of these guys. But overall, this is the very beginning of it all here. So I thought we should just do a quick live, talk about what this is looking like as we hit the offseason. We'll go through the roster and stuff like that in more detail as we go forward because this is just the beginning of everything. But I think we got to get it started just like this. Also, give me a second. I got to put my sweatshirt on, man. It's cold. It's cold, man. I didn't expect this. First, shout out to Detroit Pistons, first place. So they're 27-9, right? Hey, they're doing work. I know they had some losses in there, but it looks like they're cooking right now. My man, Coates, how you doing? Blitzing Lion, I see you. Detroit Sports Talk. Shout out to my man, Detroit Sports Talk, man. He was over on the other channel. I saw him pop up on the other channel. That was pretty cool, man. I appreciate it. Joseph Draft is rolling right now. We're getting started over there. Let's throw this on real quick. All right, now we're good. And let me know if we sound crazy. Let me know. We'll get that thing fixed. But usually, if I just switch the mic, it's good to go. It's just shout out to StreamYard for every time you refresh it, the audio gets messed up. But anyways, got a lot of things to dive into, so we won't waste any time. We'll get into that. I do want to really focus on what Dan Campbell said. I think we got the most from that versus anything. Getting to listen to Dan Campbell, what it's going to look like this offseason. I think that's where we actually gained the most, but there's still not a lot. However, I think we got the most from that. But I first want to start with some of these roster moves because this would be the first list. I'll just show what the Lions posted. These are the future reserve contracts the Lions have given out, which, as we know, there's no guarantees here, right? There's no guarantees with this, but these guys get an opportunity to come back for this, really for the offseason kind of training, and that's about it, right? That's kind of what it locks them into. So just that opportunity to kind of fill out your roster that way. No guarantees with any of this, but just an opportunity to see these guys once again. I like the list. I like the list that we have here. A couple of the standouts, one, Malik Cunningham, of course, listing him as a receiver as well. I mean, he was playing quarterback for us, but was a receiver. But we brought him in for that Baltimore game to deal with Lamar Jackson. He stuck around. At one point, we did get to see him. At one point, he took a snap in a regular season game. So that's pretty cool to see Malik Cunningham sticking around. They clearly liked him. And they were speaking pretty highly on Malik Cunningham as he was here. So I'm excited about that one. My man Mark is in the building. What up, Dan? The coldest man, the Lions podcast game. Man, I appreciate you. How you doing? Who would you like as OC? I'm not sure yet. That's going to be days to come. We will start going through specific examples. I was hoping we get a little bit more for Dan today, but I actually think what Dan said yesterday about the whole coaching staff situation makes it even more foggy in terms of what they're actually going to do. I'm not sure what they're going to do, and I don't know that there's going to be as aggressive outside additions as maybe some of the expectation is. I think there's clearly going to be movement. I mean, he made that clear. But I don't know how much new, like, outside movements that are massive swings that are actually going to be made this offseason. That's what I'm kind of keeping my eye on. And we didn't really gain a lot from that. But over the next few days, we'll probably get decisions from his end. And then we'll probably get some reports that come out. But I would expect I don't know. I don't know how to put it. It's in a weird spot right now. Also Zach Corton's back too, which is exciting. Zach Corton really all of his snaps came this last game. He's played 11 snaps, I believe, so far this season. Yeah, 11 snaps, 9 in one game, 2 in another. But he came in, played some of that fullback role for us. That was kind of his thing at Indiana. I thought Zach Corton was going to be a lot of that this season. It never really happened. It kind of didn't work out that way. Understandably, coming into the year because of our 2 top tight ends, there's not really a spot for him. But as injuries kind of piled up, eventually we got to see Zach Corton by the final game of the season. And I like him. I like him for that fit. If we're going to look for a fullback going forward, I think Zach Corton can actually fit that mold. I think he's the best player to fit that mold on the team. Anthony Fursker, of course, finished pretty strong to us for us as well. So excited that he's coming back. A couple young guys. Meeks, that's well-deserved. He was fantastic in the preseason. Actually did a lot of good all the time. I mean, he was pretty darn good through the later stages of camp, if I remember correctly. Obviously, he was good in preseason as well. He's awesome in preseason. He showed up all the time. He got some regular season looks. He was pretty good for us. Mason Miller as well. I think that's an intriguing one. He came out as a tackle, played a little bit of tackle for us, but played all 4 preseason games, really stuck at right guard, finished strong. It was rough for him, but he finished really strong. That final preseason game was his best showing by far. He played over 100 preseason snaps. Mason Miller's got an athletic build that we'll see how it translates to guard specifically, but, I know you guys brought up Colby Soares the last time I think we were live. Someone like that could potentially maybe fill that role competition-wise going forward, and I do think the way that he finished adds some optimism. We didn't really get to see him outside of that. He didn't play any snaps this year. They didn't go to him. But in preseason, it was a positive towards the end. Jabari Small's coming back too. We had a lot of backs in here that were really darn good. Chris Smith is cool to keep him around as well. We didn't see any Chris Smith, I don't believe, this year. Lawrence Strickland as well played really one game for us, that Tampa Bay game, which is where some of these DBs kind of, made it showcased for themselves. Always like Lawrence Strickland. Glad he stuck around once again. He's going to again. It always makes you feel comfortable with our safety depth when he's sticking around. But I will add to that, the other big one, and these are some of the moves that were made that aren't just future reserve contract. These are straight re-signings here. Well, I don't know if we have the details on these. I should have looked through that. But Michael Neese, Jacob Sailors, and Nick Whiteside, those guys have been re-signed. Assume 1 year, probably minimum deals. We'll get the details at some point, but I would assume. I mean, I don't assume much more than that. But I do think that those are important. I mean, you start with Michael Neese, of course. He's kind of one of our backup centers. Played 100, or not 100, I'm sorry. He only played a few snaps this season, not 100. That would have been crazy. He didn't do that. But he's got a little center guard flexibility to him. He actually played pretty well when he came in. He really came in games that we were doing our thing, right? Like for example, Washington was successful against Washington when he came in. We didn't see him a ton, but he brings some of that for us. And then also Jacob Sailors, of course, he was our kick returner, one of our main kick returners, averaged 27 yards per kick return this past season. He had like 33 kick returns, didn't really carry the ball that much. I think everybody kind of loved Jacob Sailors. Seemed to be a pretty good returner for us, to be honest with you. Tom Kennedy did too, so there's going to be flexibility there. And then, again, Nick Whiteside, 51 snaps. Almost all of them came against Tampa. 40 snaps against Tampa was fantastic. He had 3 pass breakups in that game, which is crazy. He did give up the 1 touchdown, big play. But 3 pass breakups. Mike Evans, of course, went out early in that game. He was impactful. That dude showed up. Nick Whiteside, well-deserved to get another look. I think he's like the perfect example of you don't want to throw a lot of guarantees here, but you also don't want to lose this guy. It would be nice to kind of get another look at him, right? It'd be nice to have him on your squad to see what it looks like for another offseason, see where that growth can actually get to. He is the perfect example of that. Now, that said, and I missed a couple comments here, would love to bring Stefanski as OC. I'm going to be honest, I was a little surprised Stefanski got fired. I was clearly wrong on that. That happened immediately. A little surprised with what the Browns were doing over there. They did come off a good draft. Either way, I know he's getting looks for head coach. We'll see if that happens. I think 3 teams, they said, are reaching out. That'll be interesting. I was surprised Cliff Kingsbury got fired too. Washington's got a veteran staff across the board. They don't have a lot of young guys across the board there. To me, I don't know that I completely understood it. I mean, I understood the defensive coordinator thing. I definitely got that when we played them. That one was kind of strange. I don't know. Maybe they feel like they're getting out in front of something here because it was a rough year, and it was. But with how well it went the first year, I didn't feel like they were that complex, to be honest with you. I remember thinking that going into that game, and they won. So I guess to their credit, they didn't let that overshadow them. I didn't think they were very complex in the past game, but I do feel like Kingsbury was part of a very complex run game. Now, I don't know that he brings that to the table, say if the Lions hired him, right? I don't know if he brings that or if it's going to be more of the pass game element, because I think if it's that, I'm honestly good. If it's more the run game element, now it's interesting because I thought Washington was one of the best. Huge part of that is they have a quarterback that can run. But even outside of that, they were very versatile, very heavy on tight end usage too. A lot of different things they would throw at you schematically. Their offensive line played really well together. They were on a string. I think that was a very well schematically placed run game. But a big part of that too is Anthony Lynn's been there as the run game coordinator, which is wild. Anthony Lynn's over there. He's their guy now, and that's kind of their staff. They're older on the staff. Regardless, you want the OC from the Jets. You want our guy. That's what you're saying. You want our guy back. You want Tanner Engstrand. I don't think it's going to go that way. Tanner Engstrand was our pass game coordinator, so I honestly don't think we need that, to be completely honest with you. If anything, I want a guy with a run game background. If I'm going to take a guy, I would take a guy with a run game background. That said, though, might get moved to, okay, that's crazy work. Let's talk about that, though. Let's talk about that for a second. Because if we do look at what Dan Campbell said today, yesterday, I want to go to some of the key quotes that he gave us. There were some good ones here. First off being, and this is the one I think we really got to get into, in terms of the changes that could be made. He said it could happen with both coaches and changes. He was proud of how they learned on the fly. I think the biggest takeaway, though, to this was that the changes that they're going to make, and I took this more so with the coaching staff perspective specifically, because he was like, changes are going to have to be made, but he won't go into it. And he also wouldn't go into like what decisions he's made. He talked specifically about like calling plays going forward. I don't think that's going to happen. But even he like said, like, if I did do that, I wouldn't have to worry about that guy leaving, which definitely tells you, okay, whatever it's going to be, to me, it doesn't feel like it's going to be him calling plays. That's not the vibe that I get. Maybe it would be. Not the vibe that I get. All right, I don't get that sense from him that that's what he's going to look at it as. But I guess I get it. I get it. I just don't think that's what he wants to do. So I don't think he's going to do that. But it made it feel very clear, like, okay, he's looking for a guy to coordinate this team. That's the vibe that I got from that. He's looking for someone to coordinate this team. That said, though, the opposite side is when he talked about kind of moving guys around, are they going to stay put? Like, what's the decision they're going to make? He'll make some of those over the next few days. I definitely think he left the door open to just that. Just because necessarily you change your role doesn't mean you're going to get fired. And I do think that it works because of the staff that you have a lot with the offense, and specifically the two guys. It's John Moran and it's David Shaw. Having those two guys, and because of the trajectory of kind of, I think, what they're looking for, I could be wrong on David Shaw, but I think especially with John Moran, but I think even with David Shaw, I don't know there's a huge urgency that they have to fire those guys. And again, I don't necessarily think they have to fire them. We know John Morton is not necessarily feeling like he has to be that. He wants to be that. That's a goal for him. It's a great goal to have. And maybe if he understands from Dan, like, hey, man, you're not going to be calling plays this year. Okay, we're making this guy calling plays, or I'm calling him, or I'm bringing this new guy, that he's like, I kind of want to change the scenery because, what is my path? But I think realistically, I don't think, one, he's going to get an offense coordinator job anywhere. That's not going to happen. Two, if he did, I think it'd be like a small college thing. So I don't think he's going to do that. David Shaw, of course, just wants to be at the NFL level. So I find it hard to believe that David Shaw would become the Lions offensive coordinator. I guess it's possible. I don't think that's going to happen. Shaw could have interest elsewhere. I think when you hold the tag of pass game coordinator, the Lions did a lot of good things in the pass game alone. Shaw actually could have interest, I think, this offseason from other teams. I don't think Morin's going to have that kind of interest, and especially in a role that's bigger than what he was in here, especially at the NFL level. So for that reason, I think there's a path to those guys, both of them sticking around, but specifically John Morin, I think there's a path to him sticking around and potentially grabbing a different title, right? This year he was offensive coordinator. If David Shaw were to leave, then maybe he could be the pass game coordinator. But I think there's a path to him sticking around in some way. You could also essentially give him the title that he had with the Denver Broncos, which I think is interesting too. Remember when John Morin was with the Broncos, he was kind of like I believe he was like their senior, like assistant kind of thing. Hold up, let me look up what the exact title was. That's not what it's called. That's definitely not what it was called. But it was one of those things. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Hold up. Let me remember what it was called. It's like when they have the older guy there that's just kind of helping. He was the senior offensive assistant with us, and then he became the pass game coordinator. Now he's our offense coordinator. So you potentially could take on that role. I don't know what that looks like from a schematic perspective. I don't know what his input looks like there, but I think it's on the table, and especially I think it's on the table that he sticks around because, as I said, I still don't necessarily think that it's going to be a very significant change of philosophy in any way with whoever the next offense coordinator is, assuming they go get one, because I think they're going to get one. Doesn't necessarily mean he has to call plays. That leaves the door open for Dan to call plays, but especially because I think they're going to really stay to what it looks like with Dan Campbell. I don't think there's going to be a massive swing outside of that. So for that reason, I think it opens the door for John Morton to fit in what that new style could look like. I don't know. It just feels like it kind of muddied everything. I don't think there's any clarity he gave us with anything today. That said, he didn't really talk specifically about either side of the ball, but he did talk about potentially moving guys around. Remember Montgomery this offseason became the receiver coach. They spoke pretty highly on that. I don't think Scotty Montgomery would be moved. I mean, I guess you could, right? Is he going to view it as, hey, a run game was in there? Could they potentially look at Tashard Choice not being the running back coach this year? Maybe that's one of those underrated elements potentially that gets a change, and maybe Montgomery goes back there and they feel like they should have got more out of that position. I think it's on the table. I don't know, because I feel like Gibbs was already excelling kind of in the pass game before he got here. I don't know that changes, but that's something that Dan could think about. I think it's on the table that they could move Scotty back. But I thought the receiver unit was pretty good, and they did show growth, and Tesla got a lot better. They just had some drops, some bad drops. But detail-wise, I think they were in a pretty good spot. So I don't know that those guys come into play. Obviously, they need a new tight end coach. I will say, the element that to me is probably the most interesting of what the changes could be outside of the play calling is, we'll go through some of these quotes. That way I can make it make sense. Talked about kind of the young guys playing, needing to see the win. Like, we get all that. I'm trying to figure out where it was. I might have to pull up the clip. Oh, he did say the thing about injuries. Okay, now that's worth bringing in too. He did talk about the injury thing. He said he did like the training staff that they have. He said he focuses kind of on the soft tissue because that's something that obviously is dangerous, right? Trying to deal with that and expect someone to not have reoccurring issues there. And that, what is that long-term health going to look like? You definitely got to focus on that. I think that comes back to kind of an offseason acquisition type of mindset, how you're viewing guys when you bring them in. That's something that he's going to keep in mind. But he also did bring up that he felt like a lot of this stuff is kind of freak. You know, there's some freak things that happen, like an Achilles tear and things like that, things that you can't plan for. I think that's true. But he did say, he's tried everything in practice. I think here's the thing. When Dan Campbell talked about how he kind of wanted to get back to what the Lions were early on. He said, we did early on in practice. He said, we're going to have a really good training camp. So he's already thinking about this. But I thought that was a crucial element because this might be where Dan Campbell's viewing, in my opinion, because at least this is how I saw it this year, a lot of the inconsistency with the details. This could be a big part of how he's viewing this. Is detail-wise, we weren't there. He talked about when he had to have young guys step in, right, dealing with these injuries, having a plan for it specifically, obviously, because we've had this now year after year, but having that next guy prepared to step in, having that next guy ready, that's another thing I don't think we did as well as what it felt like in years past. So when you tie along, we weren't crazy in penalties. It wasn't a huge difference from years past, but I just felt that with this team, there was plenty of, okay, there's something a little off here. So when you tie that, when he talks about kind of how they may approach practice, it may come back to a little bit more of that. I feel like we talked a lot this year, and they talked a lot this year about technique and those kind of little things. There's a chance that some of this may have spun a little bit more into schematics versus the actual technical aspect and making sure that fundamentally they were sound, where you're not having breakdowns. Because sometimes I think that can be the overlooked part of it. Schematics are fun. You start to try to figure out how you're going to do certain things, but then other things go under the radar. And I just think from an outside view, it feels like that happened a lot this year. A lot of goofy things. Weird assignments, not picking up assignments, just mistakes, just dumb mistakes, pre-snap stuff. It's just a lot of weird stuff. Some of it, you have to an extent, but when Dan said that, that's what stuck out to me, that he could be viewing a lot of the issue of maybe the way that they just had this approach from the beginning. Like with the coaching staff that he brought in from the beginning with these new guys, we had an issue of we weren't there fundamentally. We weren't there with the technical element. It was a very schematic-based idea, and schematically, they looked like the Lions of old. I don't think, again, marrying run and pass, things like that. I think they finished on a really strong note offensively. But even though they looked like that, you still felt like you had a lot of things that you're just like, this is weird. There's something just a little bit off here, right? We might have the details in what we're doing in route running, but something's a little bit off with everybody being on the same page. Maybe there was too much of an emphasis on, hey, we're getting the starters these looks, for example, and you're not hitting landmarks as well. Like just little little goofy things, man, just things that are so controllable. Um, and I gotta believe that's kind of sitting with Dan, and just like maybe the approach was just off, and with the coaching staff and the changes that we made, so much the emphasis about how this is going to change schematically. You had some veterans come in here. I mean, John Morton's, David Shaw. You're looking at from more of maybe that perspective. It may be more of kind of the, hey man, you had a guy that worked this way up, and Ben Johnson. He's young and he was working tight ends, and it's like when he steps in, you might have more of the details just dialed. And we're seeing with Chicago. Chicago was penalized a lot this year. But it was just like, it was off. There was always something off with this team, even if the schematics made sense. So I don't know. That's one of my biggest takeaways from it. What he said about the injury thing, I don't think any training staff is getting fired. So unfortunately for people that want to see that happen, don't think that's going to happen. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know. Typically, I don't really care because I don't know. Like, I don't know. So I don't think anything's going to happen there. Maybe it does. I don't know. But regardless, I think that's that most interesting point of this. He really didn't give us much outside of that. Outside of he felt like maybe we were one play away from making the playoffs, which is true. It's true, right? Things would have felt a lot different. I mean, we know they're going to emphasize the run game this offseason. We know that. I will also go to this. We got to talk about the players. Now, most of the players answered the same question the same way, as you would expect, right? You're not going to have a guy that's going to stand there and be like, I don't know if I really want to be back here. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to say that. So a guy saying, oh, I'd like to be back. That's not breaking news. All right, that's not really newsworthy. That's expected. But we'll hit on a few of them because I think Taylor Decker was probably the biggest one. What Taylor Decker said in terms of he needs to get away from football, needs to take a break, needs to get a second opinion. A lot of it was health related, the way that he was talking, what he's had to play through. Obviously, this also came up with Frank. Now, Dan did address this as basically learning from what happened last year with obviously the Frank Ragnow situation. Then he ends up retiring. I think the Lions had a potential plan in place, but I almost look at it from this perspective. Even if you had that plan in place of what you could have done, even if you expected Graham retiring, which I still think you had in theory, the answer to still deal with that, it just, you relied on some youth. You relied on guys that didn't have enough maybe experience, and it kind of shook things a bit. You relied on some youth. Miles Frazier never was available early. You relied on Mahogany, who had snaps, but it wasn't a lot. And you were already relying on a rookie guard. And I think that's what kind of got you, right? You relied on youth. Maybe you're heavier than you should have for that position specifically. And obviously came back to get him. So he said that's something that, we'll be prepared for, basically. We're going to learn from that. But I don't know that there's much that we can get from Decker at this point. Does he come back? Does he not? I don't know. I mean, he talked about how he's going to have to get these second opinions. It's going to be come down to his family. How does he feel after after football? That's so important to him. He said he's emotional, so he can't make an emotional decision. So I don't think we got a ton from what Decker said, right? Dan said they were going to speak to Decker with today or yesterday. They probably did, but like he said, it's going to take time anyway. But outside of that, with just knowing that's on his mind, I think there's an expectation that they're going to come in with the mentality that we have to grab another tackle somewhere, because I think it's somewhat similar to what happened this year. You can make the case that and Imanu hasn't even put that great production out there, but if you just looked at it from the perspective of, hey, Manu could be the next guy, even if we draft somebody, I think after this last year, kind of like you did with Mahogany and then you drafted Frazier, that mindset just might not pass. And I don't know the Lions are going to be willing to let that make sense for them this offseason, like maybe they did this last offseason, where it's like, okay, hear you, we have to at least sign a stopgap. It doesn't have to be a monster deal, but like what Kansas City did this offseason, I don't even know if that had worked out that well from San Fran. Maybe that's making a veteran trade. You don't ideally want that guy starting maybe, but we have to get a stopgap somewhere just in that case that Decker does retire. Even if we draft a guy that can play tackle, we have to have that guy there. And I think that's probably going to be the difference this offseason. That even if they draft somebody, unless it's a first-round pick, they may still look at it as, hey, we've never really done this. I mean, the Lions have never really invested in a backup tackle. They kind of just had guys develop. Matt Nelson, Dan Skipper. Dan Skipper may stick around. But I get the sense that this offseason, and one big difference is they're probably going to sign a backup tackle to a more legitimate contract than what we've done in the past. That might be a little bit more resource allocation than we've expected in the past, while them also still being able to draft that position, even if Decker, depending on how long Decker takes to make that decision. Because even if Decker tells you in a month, like, I want to play again, all right, cool, we still got to figure that out. We still got to have a backup tackle that we like, really on both sides. But we got to have a backup tackle that we like, because we just don't know. Even if he thinks he's going to come back, once we start getting into these workouts, is he going to keep that same mindset? Will he feel the same? And even with that, he has been banged up. So you still need to have an answer there. So I just think the difference between this year and last year is probably trying to reduce some of the reliance on it has to be a young guy. Like just the answer of, especially if it's not a first round pick. Like if the Lions win at second round and took a tackle and Decker told you were coming back, I don't know that they would feel like they did enough. I don't know that they would feel like that this offseason. First round could be the the difference, right? If he takes him in the first round, he's going to start anyway. 17th pick in the draft. He's probably going to start somewhere on the O-line. Though the only problem with that, again, like I say, if you draft someone at 17 for tackle, he's probably got to play somewhere else on the line, so he'll probably step in at guard. And if that happens, now all of a sudden you'd have to shuffle the O-line just because the Decker wasn't there. And that's not ideal either from a development perspective. So I just think we're going to throw some money at a tackle this year. Not monster money, but even if Decker decides he's going to play, which I hope he does. I like Decker a lot. Some money is going to be allocated there that we really haven't done in the past. And I think that's the right way to go about this. I think that's the only way to go about this because I don't think that we've done it in the past. And I think we have to. And I think we got away with it in the past because you can look at it from the perspective of, hey, we got 2 cornerstone tackles. It's hard to find another one. We're not going to waste money just throwing $5-6 million at another backup tackle. We trust our development process, which was pretty good. Dan Skipper and Matt Nelson were serviceable. You could kind of play away from that. But I think this year, because there's a potential of extended missed time here or potentially not even being there for the season, they can't come in with that approach. They'll probably have to double dip draft and free agency. So we'll see how that shakes out. Cam Robinson is a free agent. That'd be interesting. Did a good job with Minnesota when he stepped in there. So that's the first one. That's the big one. We'll see what happens. I hope he keeps playing. But obviously do the right thing. I love Taylor Decker, man. Roy Lopez. Let's go here real quick. Because Roy Lopez talked about his development as a pass rusher. Obviously, he said that, he'd be very open to coming back. I think he said something like that. They all kind of said the same thing. But Roy Lopez, I think he's coming back. All right. Here's the kind of the difference, right? I think Roy's coming back. I don't think Muhammad's coming back. Now, Muhammad had a quote, I think it was on the radio, where he was like, I'll go where I'm like valued or something like that. I don't know. I would understand if he's looking to get paid. Why wouldn't you? You're turning 31 soon, right? Soon. Muhammad's coming off of 12 sacks. If someone's going to give you a bag, go get the bag, dude. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do get the sense, and I don't want to do this because I don't think it's completely fair, but it does remind me a little bit of the Charles Harris situation, where Charles Harris had a really good season, broke out with us, and then we gave him an extension, and obviously it didn't work out. I'm not saying it wouldn't work out with Muhammad. I like Muhammad a lot. But I kind of get the vibe of that. I think with where the Lions are at financially, I think he's going to outprice us. I think someone's going to be willing to pay a guy like that. They had 50 pressures and 12 sacks. Remember, 6 of those sacks came in 2 games. Dallas, he had 3. Baltimore, he had 3. I think some of those he kind of just stepped into sacks. Muhammad did a good job, not taking anything away from him. I don't think they're going to pay him because I don't think they're going to match what teams are going to be willing to throw him this offseason for a number 2 rusher. I could be way off on that, but I think teams are going to be willing to throw some money at him. I don't think the Lions are going to get in that market. I think he's probably going to walk this offseason. And if he does, shout out to Muhammad because Muhammad was a dog. What a heck of an addition to get him back. He turned into a fantastic re-signing for us this offseason after flashing really the year before. It was great. I don't think he's going to come back. Roy, I think, is more likely to come back. I think Roy's more likely to come back. First off, DJ Reader's a free agent. They didn't really ask him about anything there. I don't think he's going to come back. I think Tyleek played really well to end this season. He's going to be looked at as a starter going in the next year, I assume. With Aleem McNeil, they continue to give him a ton of snaps. He's going to be looked at the same way. Again, you have to address that, but I think Roy will be the guy that'll be a big part of addressing that. 13 pressures, I think 14 stops on the season, which is pretty good. His age, motivation, I think he's coming back this season. I think he's going to get extended, which is one of our predictions for the season. So I guess it's cheating me saying that because I've already kind of set myself to I believe that's going to happen. But I do believe it's going to happen. Alex Anzalone said this. I mean, he kind of said the same thing. He's like, I don't know if I can make it more clear. Yes, I want to stick around here. Expecting his 3rd child soon. Congrats, Duracell. Love to hear that. He played 1,000 snaps this year. That was the takeaway for me on Alex Anzalone. He played 1,000 snaps this season, man. I didn't even realize he played that much. 1,000 snaps? That's pretty awesome. He stayed this year, and maybe again, because of when it happened, he was willing to, because it was before the season, to stay and not try to go through this whole process of moving. He feels like he's got some good ball left. He's 31 years old right now. it would probably have to be a short-term deal. Where is his mind at on a short-term deal? Where is his head at taking a short-term contract? I think, early prediction, I think Alex resigns with the Lions. I think he resigns. That's the sense that I have. Not 100% confident on that, but I think he does resign with the Lions. Now, Meek Robertson's the other interesting one. Amik saying that the door is still open to return. And specifically, Amik spoke so highly about his time here. Like, listen to Amik talk was pretty awesome. We have to play that clip. And just the growth that he's had, the opportunity that the Lions gave to Amik to try to expand his role and do things that maybe he didn't feel like he maybe knew he could do until he got there. And because of that opportunity, right, what it turned into for him, it was awesome to hear from Amik. And just listening to him made me want to re-sign him. I was like, bring that guy back. I don't care what he did this season. Bring him back. I love him. Hey, man, but and I get, I'm sure the Lions are going to feel that same way. Like, dude, you're a Lion, man. You're freaking staying here with us. If I had to guess, I think he comes back. That said, I don't know that I would re-sign him because I would like to bring back Rocky Sin. Financially, it could be a little difficult. It does kind of throw in that category of preparation for injuries. And I actually think that this makes it less clear because you could think, oh, well, hold up. I mean, Ennis has been hurt and Terron's been hurt. I mean, can we have to keep him here for reliability. But actually, you could look at it from the other perspective of because you know those guys who miss such extended time, do you believe Amik Robertson is a starting cornerback? That might be the question they have to ask themselves instead. And I think that makes it more tricky. I don't know that I would bring him back because I don't know financially that I think it's going to really work out. But I love Amik Robertson, man. And I'm so happy we ended up scooping him up. And I get it. Like, look, Amik, I think even some of those bad games, like Amik was better than I thought. Statistically, he looked rough, and I thought he was better. I thought he battled. You know, LA Rams battled. You know, it was bad, but he battled, man. He brought it. I think Amik is better than what the stats show a lot of times. And I know he's going to play the run. I don't think he's a nickel. I think he's more of a wide, but I think they like him at nickel. He kind of feels like a Will Harris vibe in the sense that you can kind of put him everywhere. I think the way he stays around is his price point just doesn't get high this offseason, which I do think is on the table. I do think it's on the table that Amik Robertson doesn't command a lot of money in free agency. I think that's very possible. And that could be the path for him coming back here. And it just doesn't cost a ton to bring him back. That'll be the way that he gets back. And I think that's a real possibility, which is why I think that he does probably get re-signed. I don't think he's going to command a ton of money on the market. Could be wrong. I don't think he will. So if I had to guess, I think he does come back. Graham Glasgow didn't really give us much, kind of expected, but was just basically like, hey, I'm under contract, so I'm here. If that doesn't change, I'm aligned. All right, Graham, we got you. So there you go. And then I guess Laporta also brought up like his back injury. He said he was walking like an old man, so he had to have the surgery, but he's hoping to be back by OTAs, running by OTAs. So happy he got that done. I mean, it stinks during the season. It always does, like, oh, dude, they had surgery. But it's good in the long term. That's the right way to go. So I'm happy for what that's going to look like. Okay, let me read some of these. Am I crazy, but the Packers bleeding the Bears? I don't think it's crazy to think the Packers beat the Bears. I don't think that's crazy. Now, I don't really have a rooting interest because I kind of hope they both lose. But that said, part of me doesn't hate rooting for the Bears here. I mean, obviously, we beat them both times. But I think part of me has a lean towards hoping Chicago gets the win. Not because like I like their fans and stuff, but it's more so just I thought Ben Johnson was a dog with the Lions. I was never that bitter about Ben Johnson leaving. I think it's a great rivalry, and I think it's going to be awesome as we go forward. But if anything, I think that him taking that challenge on and taking that opportunity and what he's able to do with it, I think it's pretty darn awesome. I think he's done a great job. So I know I'm kind of alone on an island, I think, when I say that. But for me to have a lean, I lean towards rooting more for Chicago than Green Bay in that game. I'd like to see, I think, Chicago get that win. It's going to be fire because of all the stuff that he said about LaFleur, and he likes beating the Packers twice a year. Okay. Well, this year you beat him once, and he won on an onside kick. All right. If I was putting money on it, I'd probably bet Green Bay. I'd probably bet Green Bay to win. But I think I have a lean towards I'd like to see Chicago get it done. I like to see them get a win. I don't know. We need tight end because Brock Wright and Sam Laporta are concerning. No doubt. And again, that's one of those tough spots because you're going to have. I mean, you got real resources allocated to 2 tight ends. Laporte is not expensive yet, but Brock Wright's getting paid a good amount of money. So financially, how much do you really throw at a third tight end? You won't throw a lot there. So they'll have to make decisions on their guys. I think getting Zach Corton back, I think Zach Corton's got a path to sticking around with this year. I do think there's a path where he could be tight end 3 this year. But I do think it's worth bringing in new competition and potentially taking a swing on a young guy in a draft. We haven't really done that. Some teams have had success with it. You think about the Chargers, Granderson, or Granson, the tight end out of Syracuse, kind of a receiver. It worked out. This might be the year where they kind of take a swing there in the draft and try to get a new young guy in there. They haven't really put much investment in a lot of their depth. This might be a time where they take a swing and see if they can stick around and develop it into something versus kind of just going that same route. This might be the year that it finally happens. I think we've thought about it in the past. I think this year that it may actually go down. I'm with Graham coming back for depth. I'd like to see a pay cut financially. I don't know if he's going to be with that. I think he probably would. But ultimately, I'd like to see him come back for depth. He'd be a great backup. He's a great backup. And he's a capable starter. Like, he's not awful when he's out there. It's just, I think that the reality is the same with Graham. If you have him out there, you got to be good around him. Because if you're shaky at guard around him, you're not going to feel his presence, and it's going to just show everything being bad. I think that's the problem. And we weren't great at guard around him. If you have him to start and you have good guard play that you like, he's going to look great. He's going to look fine. So I like Graham a lot. I wouldn't want him to be my starter necessarily as like that's option 1. But I do like him. Again, I think Tate's going to go to center. So I think the path for keeping Graham does make sense because he can play center. So he does give you that backup. And he can play guard. So it does make sense, especially if he takes a pay cut. But he's under contract for a couple years. There's a path for making sense. They're going to address that anyway. Tyler Higbee and Foster Moreau are free agents. I honestly, I don't see them putting I don't know. Like I like those names. I just think this is the year that maybe you throw a draft pick there. Maybe they don't, because maybe, they feel like Higbee, for example. He'd fill in. He'd be a cleaner run blocker you would expect. Maybe you don't have as many of the assignment issues that you had this season where it's just like, I don't know if we're just not knowing who you're blocking. Like, I don't know what we're doing. But tight end run blocking was always disappointing to me this year. But I just feel like it makes sense to now throw an investment there, right? Like, let's invest in the future a little bit. Let's see if we can get a guy that can grow into a tight end 3/2. Let's see if we can find that. And like K-Don, K-Don was gonna cost way too much. I think he would cost way too much. Get a guy that's young that we can put in that mix. We have never really done that for that position. The only guy we did was James Mitchell. But that kind of swing, I think, might be worth taking again this offseason. That's what I would look to do. Right now, my mindset would be day 3 pick. I want to take a swing on a tight end again. What's up, Dose? What are we going to do if Alex leaves? Draft or free agency? I think they're both on the table. I think linebacker and draft has multiple options. If he leaves, I think Malcolm definitely re-signs. If he leaves, I think Malcolm absolutely re-signs. Opportunity is going to be there for him. He'll see the vision to potentially being a starter, especially if the Lions only address it at the draft. So I think in free agency, usually you don't have to spend a big money to get a linebacker free agency. So there's going to be options in both paths. I think both are going to be on the table. But I think if he leaves, Malcolm resigns. And Malcolm could end up being our starter next season. Like, that's all on the table, I think. Really disappointed in Mahogany. I was too. But I also think potentially, and this is just to be fair to the guy, there was probably some oversight by the Lions. Like, there's definitely blame that I think is deserved for, okay, hey, Lions, you didn't get a lot of snaps from the guy, and you expected him to be your starting left guard. You didn't really have a contingency plan behind him. Your other plan was young guy. Even if Miles was healthy, that would have been kind of crazy, right? But those are things that we learned. At the time, again, I thought it made sense. It was like, okay, as long as Mahogany's kind of what he was last year, we're good. But then it wasn't that. Then he gets hurt, and it turns out Miles isn't available. Now, I didn't know that about Miles. I didn't know he was going to come in not available, but he wasn't available either. So it was very quickly like, oh, snap, we're kind of scrambling here. That's not ideal. Something you got to be more so prepared for this offseason, and I think you learn from that. Like, we probably shouldn't have did ourselves like that. Okay, we always rely on the young guys, but we probably did a little too much here. We tried a little too much, trusting that was going to work. And it didn't, It's all right. On these fat old line guys, are they not a dime a dozen? Hubbard filled in fine. For Sewell, let's get skill and skill positions. Yeah, I'm completely opposite. We need linemen. We need linemen. That's number one. We need interior to be better. And I think the big thing there is Tate improved. right? But it's just the idea of, and obviously the first thing first is pass protection. That's been incredibly underwhelming. I think Goff did a lot of good this year when he was under duress, but I also think that constantly put Goff in that spot, you're asking to have failure, right? You're asking yourself to, this is going to go bad. This is going to go sideways eventually. And I think he did a much better job this year than any year past, honestly, at handling that, which was good. I think it's going to be good for Goff. But and I think he's grown so much, which is fantastic. So it actually, it could work out, right? This could be good things. But I think just the inconsistency. I mean, just inconsistencies across the board. Obviously, pass pro that's not all in them. Some of that's preparation going into the game. Minnesota was bad. It was a terrible plan. We saw it was bad. But also, like when you're fitting run blocks, double teams, like the inconsistency there, we're not giving ourselves a chance. Some of that I definitely think can come with just straight growth, like straight development. But especially now with the tackle situation, potentially Decker's future, you got to have a plan for these things. You got to put some money there. And again, if it was a different team, I may roll with you a bit, like depending on the team. But because it's the Lions, I can't at all. Like, it's got to be top priority just because of our style, what we're built for. Again, you drafted a running back at 12, you paid another running back for a 3-year deal. If he's not having consistent success, you've already invested in the weapon. It's like something's got to change there. There's only a few ways you can actually go. And I think they'll go both routes. I think they'll go coaching route. And I think they'll go offensive line. But I think it was definitely clear this year as a big positive. We got a lot of weapons because we lost Laporta, and we felt it, but it was like games that I would go into what I would be like, oh, this would be great, man. Laporta's going to eat in the middle of the field. Like Chicago, for example, I thought, oh, man, Laporta would be great for this game. We didn't really miss a beat too much without him. I mean, 330 yards passing against that team was pretty darn good. And that was the weakness of their defense. Obviously, Saint 8, but you got a lot of depth that, you got a lot of dudes now. You got a lot of dudes there. So to me, that has to come first and foremost. I would like Tyler Linderbaum and Proctor. I don't think we can afford Linderbaum, so I don't think he'll be here. But we'll see. And I mainly think he's not going to become a free agent. Caden Proctor's cool. I rock with Caden Proctor. I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. It'll probably put him on the board when we're on the clock. We wouldn't have to move, I think, to get Caden Proctor. He's a pretty front athlete. They put him in a lot of different spots. Obviously, he's a pure people mover at the point of attack. Some of it's projection-based, a little bit concerning because sometimes you think tackle to guard, oh, it's easier. He's got less range. Well, what happens, though, is everything's happening faster. So while he may have less range to deal with, he's got to deal with things getting really fast. And that'll be a difference for him. That'll be a transition that you're forcing him into. So I think it could work, especially, and here's where I think Proctor would really work. If you can get to a point where you feel like you're going to be more gap scheme heavy this offseason. If you feel like you're going to do that and you're going to lean into that, like say, the guy we talked about from Tampa Bay, their run game coordinator, say you hired a guy like that's coming from a schematic team that has really leaned into that. Or even if you think about like the Rams, right, and all their duo runs, if you get into something like that and you feel comfortable with his ability to fit and actually play with some real pad level, he would fit really well into what you are schematically. I think as long as you lean into, we want to be that kind of push you around team, as long as we have an identity of what we're trying to be offensively, I think it makes sense. I think the Lions have started that. They've tried to start that, right? You have Mahogany, who's a people mover, though he may not start going forward. I don't think Graham Glasgow fits perfectly into that, which is kind of the weird issue. I think Tate fits in that. He's a good athlete, but he's also a real people mover at the point of attack. Sewell fits into that. Decker not as much, but it's your left tackle, so whatever. Decker's going to get more positioning. But I think you have to be strong across the board in terms of like how we're trying to build this thing. And flexibility is always the way that I think you're trying to build it. Athletically, he's below average for me at tackle. And that's the concern. That's the concern. But he's going to push people around. So if you get a guy like that, should help the range. You're going to have a people mover. But you understand that there's certain things that maybe just not be the best to ask of him. And you have to play to that. Now, if we looked at this last game, Lions did a lot of stretch running. Now, they tend to hit gaps a lot faster. They don't go as wide as teams like Miami do and San Fran do. But we did a lot of stretch runs. That was a huge part of who we were. And we do lean on that athleticism a lot of times. So, how comfortable are they with that? That's where I'm just not sure. It'll be something we look into, especially before the draft even more. But I know the Lions, stretch is a big part of who they are. It's a lot of their foundational run scheme and then versatility. So I think if they get a lineman, it's going to be someone that you have to feel is fairly well-rounded. He doesn't have to be the best at anything, but he's got to be pretty well-rounded. I think that's going to be the big challenge for them finding a next offensive lineman, specifically in the draft. is that they don't feel like there's limitations on what he can do schematically, because if they feel that, it's going to impact everybody else across the board. But, you're going to address multiple positions there probably anyway, so you could get away with it. We have 7 draft picks, 2 sixth, no third. Who are you getting in the first 3 picks? Tackle guard. Frazier can play tackle. Yeah, I'm not trusting Frazier to play tackle. I think that's would not be good to ask of him. I want him just to develop as a guard. Now, they could look at him as a tackle in the future and start that process, but I'm not looking at him as that. But that said, I don't know where I'm going the first 3 picks yet. And I don't want to make up my mind. I mean, I could just tell you what I think the 3 needs are, and we could just do that. But here's the thing, and I always got to remind myself of this, and I was thinking about it again today. What if there was a path where, because today I did my Colton Hood video. That's why I'm rocking the hood. So shout out to Colton Hood. We did that video on Dose of Draft. If the Lions drafted someone like that, right? They fell in love with that prospect, the upside. They took someone like that, and they're like, hey, man, he can play some slot. Good press corner. He's long. We're going to draft him. Now, needs-wise, it'd be like, that's kind of weird, right? It's like, I don't know if we needed that. But then you could be like, oh, well, we are banged up at corner. And, hey, man, if he could be, let's say he's a starting slot or something. If he could do that, with Reed and Terrion / Rakestraw, all right, we feel pretty good about that. And it does still fill a need. I think you can make the case as well. Is there a path to doing that, right? Do you have to pigeonhole yourself and it has to be a lineman? I don't think so. I don't think you have to do that. I think they're going to have their hand forced a bit because they're going to have to draft one within probably their first 2 picks. I don't think it has to be the first pick. But I don't know. I just don't want to put myself in that category where it has to be a lineman. I don't want to do that because I think there's a path to still making it work. Like, let's say they go to free agency. Decker says he's sticking around. So you say, okay, we got to be prepared for that. We go sign a tackle. We give him $6-7 million a year. And something like that. We feel pretty good. He's a good backup. If he had to start, he could start. We do that. Graham 6th round takes a pay cut. Okay. So we're rocking Mahogany. We got Ratledge. We got Frazier. We probably need some interior offensive line help. As we saw, Tate was an immediate starter as a round 2 pick. And we're going to have a higher round 2 pick this year. Plus, interior linemen again at the top, interior offensive linemen aren't going to be as highly sought after, and I don't think there's as many of them. I think you get a really good interior lineman in the second round. There's a world in which the Lions could just do that. They could sign the guy in the second round. You would come in expecting Tate to start. You can move Tate to center, slide him in, and then I think again you gotta go back and probably take another swing at the offensive lineman again in the draft. But I don't think it has to be first round. And I would also this is the thing that I keep going back to. This is the year to me to do something that you haven't done. Trade for an offensive lineman. Don't trade for him right before the season and be like, here's a 7th round pick for your guy that's pretty good in the preseason. A legitimate trade for an offensive lineman. Someone that financially you don't have to worry about, like, hey, man, we got to go spend big money to beat this team out. Kind of, again, what Kansas City did when they scooped up San Fran's backup tackle. Something like that, I think, should be in play this year. Because now you open up a lot of flexibility. If you make a trade like that, maybe you give up your 4th this year. I mean, that's a heck of a value to give up. Maybe you give up a future 3rd or something, or you make a pick swap for that 2nd. I think doing something like that has to be on the table this year. Because if you can do that, you could do that for an interior offensive lineman. You're going to get probably a starting level player or rotational piece. Now you plug him in. You signed a veteran tackle in free agency. Now you open up your board a bit. I think that's the fastest way to open up the board this year, that we are not relying on, it has to be a young offensive lineman that wasn't a first rounder. You're not forcing yourself into that position again. I don't think you want to force yourself, especially outside of the first round. I think that's the way that you should look at it, because free agency is just not going to have a lot of great options because interior offensive linemen don't become available like that. I would look at trying to find a trade, and that'll be something we look into. I'll look into it a bit. Like, is there guys that could actually be moved this offseason? But I think that's the time to do it. We've done it before, just not as aggressively. This would be a great opportunity to do that. Use your draft capital before the draft. I know we love the draft picks, but with where you're at as a team, you want some guy that's played a little bit. I think that's the way to do it. How they get Zeitler. And Zeitler had a little bit of a step back this season. And I know he's a free agent this year. I don't know what his interest, honestly, is even going to be to play. I would have no issue with Zeitler. He should be much cheaper at this point. I'd like to have him back. But I think that's my preferred path. If we can find a trade partner to go add somebody anywhere on the offensive line, to be honest with you, but specifically on the interior, I think that'd be the best path to do it. Because then it's like, well, shoot, the 4th round pick starting at guard is a lot to ask of him. But if I trade for somebody, I could legitimately get that guy. Maybe he's on the final year of his contract, right? But it's like that's kind of the position we're in right now. That's what we need. We need that piece. Um, and that's what I think about. There's going to be a few free agents I think fall in that category. I bring up like John Simpson. I think he'd be a good addition. I think he'd fit in that category. You get him in free agency, potentially $6-7 million. The problem would be obviously backup tackle, but maybe you do that. Maybe you go sign an interior offensive lineman. You go to trade market. You trade for a backup tackle, someone that you liked as a prospect coming out, but now he's had a little experience. He's had a few years playing, maybe in the preseason, a little bit of regular season. Go trade for that guy. Make him your backup tackle. Do that. Right? Like something like that, I think should be on the table this year. It's a different path to do it, but there's always a path to do it. Take Walker. Dude, the sad thing is, I've had so many bad takes, especially back then for the draft. But Rasheed Walker, I loved Rasheed Walker out of Penn State for some reason, and he's worked out really well. Now, he'll probably command too much, I believe. Is he under contract? I think the problem with them is they didn't think they were going to pay him. So I don't know if he's under contract or not. If he's under contract for next year, that's a guy I would absolutely go after because Green Bay probably doesn't think they're going to end up paying him, which is what all the Green Bay people have told me. So because of that reason, he would actually be available. I just thought he was a free agent this offseason because he was drafted the Hutch year. Is that right? He was drafted the Hutchinson year. 22, 23, 24, 25. I think he's a free agent. Yeah, he's a free agent. He'll probably cost too much. That'll probably be the issue. But if he doesn't, I'll be on board. I know what I mean? I'd be way on board for that. Would you go get a vet guard? Yeah, and that's how I'd go about it, right? You just gotta. He doesn't have to be like 32 years old. But I think free agency is always a little dangerous. It always is, and I think this year's class is kind of falling there, where it's either going to be you're paying a ton of money, which I don't think the Lions will get into that world. I wouldn't hate it, but I don't think they'll get in that world. Or you're going to get a guy that's like, okay, he's been solid, but depending on the scheme that we put him in, I don't know how this is going to work out. That's probably the more reasonable path for the Lions this offseason. But I don't know. I just feel like estimate $23 million. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, we ain't going to do that. I don't think we're going to do that unless Decker retires, and then it's like, all right, well now we got let's take some money and throw it at him. Then maybe you consider doing something like that. You go the next path. But assuming he's here, I don't know. I think that's the path to do it. And then I think that opens up your draft. And that's what the Lions want to ultimately have is their draft open. Because I think if you put yourself to guard, it's not that you may miss on him. It's just that you may miss on something else. And there's enough here the Lions can't address. I mean, they feel good at receiver, feel good at back. Tight end, you don't want to do that round one. But, like you could address defensive line again. You could address another secondary player, safety, or corner. I think there's enough spots that you want to try to keep that open. And here's the thing, too. This year, like cornerback is strong this year. You could wait on cornerback, too. It's real strong this year. I think it's very top heavy for corner. There's going to be a ton of different options and a lot of different schematic fits. Like if you want to get something like that, it's going to be really good. And there's some versatility between safeties and slots this year. There's a little bit of that. It's not as strong, but there's some flexibility between those two. Maybe you can get a swing there a little bit later in the draft. That could be like a 4th round pick. Something like that. Joel Bitonio is available. Injury history equals a bad guy. Yeah, Joe's gone through it, I think. I think Joel's been beat up all the time. But I think that's what it looks like. Like Dan said, the foundation, the core, he believes is still here. I think it is too. I think most of it's still here, but definitely tweaks going to have to be made. Ultimately, though, this is just kind of the get us started. Feel free to go check out Dose of Draft. Like I said, we dropped another draft profile today. We dropped one yesterday. We're going to continue to ramp it up over there and just keep dropping those. I know my guy in the chat threw some suggestions, so I may jump on a few of those. But ultimately, we're going to get into this talk. I just wanted to make this as kind of the baseline. There's a lot of things here that we're not getting too detailed on, but we will. We'll get into the coaching staff soon. Hopefully, we get some updates. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna look for trade candidates on the O-line. I just think it's time, bro. It's time. Trade candidates on the O-line, I think would be great. Be a good video, and that'll kind of get us going here. Are we keeping Khalif? I hope so, man. And Khalif ain't gonna demand a ton of money. I don't think so. Khalif ain't gonna demand a ton of money. He's always a great returner. He's very consistent. I love Khalif. Justin Jack Slaughter. I think. Let me see what I had on it. Or isn't it Jake Slaughter? Or is it Jack? Wait, why do I have him down as Jake? I probably spelled it wrong. Either way. 5th-year senior out of Florida. I got a lot of good notes on him from what I'm reading here. I haven't done my final verdict on him, but there's a lot of good notes here from what I'm seeing. A lot of this was based on my 2024 preseason stuff. So, I got to get back into this. Quickness, loose hips, footwork to climb. He's got a well-built frame. See, this is looking interesting. He'll be someone we have to get into a little bit more. I'll have to get into a little bit more, right? We've hit on a couple recently, but I'll have to get into it a little more. And we will. Check out my guy Quincy. All right, I'll check out Quincy. Mansour Delane. Mansour Delane's really good. Mansour Delane's really good. I think he's going to be one of the higher picks this year. Where did I have him at? Where did I have him at? He's really good, man. Okay, so I like him most in off-man coverage, but he does run support really well. See, I don't know. I don't know how lines are going to feel about that. I didn't like as much as a presser, his own guy. I don't know. But I know he's going to go high. He'll go high. I think he's really young too coming out. I could be wrong. I think he's pretty young coming out too. Do you think there's a chance the Lions take a DB in the first round? I think it's on the table. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's too deep not to consider. It's kind of like last year, like edge was considered because it was deep enough. And by the time we got there, it got a little bit thin. I think some of the D line went further or higher than maybe expected. Like Pierce went off, and then Jalen went off, maybe where he expected to go. And then, Pierce guy, I think they traded up behind us. But like guys like the dude out of Marshall fell. I think that was a big size thing, obviously the off-the-field stuff. So I think it's on the table. I think there's a lot of good corners. Haven't heard as much about the bad things about these guys like off the field, so we'll see. But I love the corner room so far. And I think that might end up being one of the strongest positions day one, day two. Specifically day one, but like getting into day two kind of thing. That might be one of the stronger spots of this year's draft. And because there's so much variety and there's so much depth, I can't say it's impossible the Lions jump on one if it makes sense. I mean, if they had a guard they liked and he goes, maybe they like Pregnon out of Oregon and he goes, I don't think it'd be crazy to think they take a corner. My favorite moment of the season. Ooh, my favorite moment of the season. That's good. This is kind of sad though. Hold up. Favorite moment. I mean, the Tampa Bay game's got to be up there because I was at that game. So that was pretty top tier. Let me see real quick before we wrap this thing, man. Make sure I'm not missing something good. Fired up for the Senior Bowl. Let me make sure I don't miss anything good here. Favorite moment. Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, as a game, definitely the Baltimore game. Baltimore game was the best. That thing was electric. The way we handled it. That was probably the best game. Prime time, that was fire. That was the best game, I think. My favorite moment, though, man, maybe being up on the Rams by 10. Hey, yo, we were by 10, bro. We lost the game, but in that moment, it's feeling pretty good. Like, wait a minute, we about to beat the Rams. I didn't, that surprised me at the time. Probably one of those. Probably one of those, man. I mean, ooh, dude, some of these are just tough because we lost at the end. There was good moments during it, and then we lost, so it's tough. Was there like a play? Y'all got like a play? I don't know, dude. Was beating Benedict Johnson. Monty might be out on the way out. I don't think he's going to be on the way out. I don't think they're going to cut him. Again, it would help them for 2 years from now. It'd help them a little bit this year, not much. I don't think they'd cut him this year. I think he could be the year after this year, but I think with them talking about their core and usually extending guys early like they do, I don't think they're going to cut him. We need to starting safety help. I don't have a good feeling about Kirby. We'll have to look at it. We'll definitely have to address that. Definitely. And just getting Branchland will help. Getting him back. Harper will be here. Dan Jackson will be here. We'll see how they swing on that one. Because Kirby was a third rounder, and he was pretty good right away. Free agency usually has pretty cheap safeties, though. Like, usually you can find a guy as a safety that's not super expensive. Lots of choice for OC. What do you think? Like, right now, my expectation is they hire somebody that Dan's familiar with, and they'll hire him to call plays. This is a pure guess. Probably will have a run game background, or it'll be like very similar. It'll be like this guy likes to run the football, and then he'll have experience, I think, calling plays, and then I think they'll end up keeping John Morton. I think John Morton will change his title. I think John might become our pass game coordinator. and I'm just not sure on David Shaw. Shaw might become like the offensive assistant. I could see him becoming like a senior offensive analyst or something unless someone else gives him an offer. Right now, I'm not super confident thinking any of those guys are actually going to get fired. I think they're going to move positions, demoted, if you will. But I think when you listen to John, like what he wants to do and what he likes to do, I don't think there'd be any like, oh man, are you serious? I think he'd be all in for it. I think he'd be all in for it. Like, yeah, dude, I'll just work on the pass game. I'm with that. And then it's really going to come down to Shaw. I think Shaw's going to be the weird piece here. I don't know what's going to happen with David Shaw. I have no idea because I don't know what he's doing day to day for him. But he's going to be the weird one. But I do think I think John's going to stick around. You could start to see a disconnect from the team, Monty. I don't know. They used Gibbs a lot, and I blame that more so on honestly coaching. I felt like they just went really Gibbs heavy for no reason. I thought it made no sense towards the end of the year. At some point, it's like, why are we just not giving Monty the ball better? So it's true. I thought we made a mistake there not giving him the ball more. In saying that, though, I don't think they're going to move off him. I think that they're going to recognize that they didn't give him the ball enough. Unless he says something like, hey, I want to get out of here, which I guess that's possible. I don't think the Lions will be super interested in moving off him. But I do think that I think that's going to be part of Dan's thing is like, this guy wasn't effective, didn't get a ton of carries. That's on us as coaches, but it's also the front's not good enough. This guy should be better. We know he's better than that. All right, we got to be better statistically than what that was. I mean, it just comes down to me. The fact that Gibbs couldn't get explosives at the end of the year said it all. Like, it's not normal that he wasn't popping anything. Anything. I mean, what was Gibbs' like last big run? I mean, it felt like we just couldn't pop like a massive run at any point. Dan has connections to Dable. Well, hey, maybe then. Maybe Brian. Where does he have connections to Dable? With Miami? Miami? Maybe they play together. Cut Barnes. Not even going to trade for him. Yeah, I don't think you're going to do that either because they just gave him an extension. And look, Barnes didn't play terrible all year. I think for Barnes, he's got to have a very specific role. Lions will continue to lean three backers. I don't think that's going to change. I think he ended on a really sour note. Wasn't a good last game, which is unfortunate. But you know what he is, and you have to find a way to really lean into that because you paid him. You invested in him. And as a coaching staff, you got to find a way to make that make sense. I think he was thrown off a bit, to be honest with you, as some of the schematic changes happened this year. I don't know that it was ideal for him because I think his coverage usage becomes much more important when you play a lot of zone. It's much more spot dropping, finding routes. I don't think that's at all his strength. I think he can do it to an extent, but it's not his game. He did make a good play this last game, though. He broke one out. But I feel like he was on the wrong end of like kind of what's the best Derek Barnes. So I don't think they're going to move off just because I don't think they'll have the flexibility to do it. But they definitely have to. I think, again, you got to get back to who you are as a team, ideally, which would hopefully help him a little bit, too. Atlanta letting Algier walk, kind of the ripple effect for Monty. They let Algier walk. Yeah, but was he under contract for 2 more years? What is also, let's look at this, too. I want to look at this before we get out of here. Was he already released? It says he breaks silence. I hate these titles. I can't stand these dang titles. Break silence on it. Atlanta running back set to be he's a free agent. Okay, he's just walking. I think. Because I think, and I could let me double check here. Monty he's under contract next year and the year after, but he's got this year. He would save us $3.5 million. I mean, there's a way to cut him. You could. That $3.5 million could be valuable. And like I said, it'll help you a lot for the year after because you get out of all that dead cap immediately. You just eat it right now. And there's not a ton of dead cap within this contract. So you could do it. $4.8 million if you cut him now because you'd add 2.4 to 2.4. So that's not crazy. It's not crazy that you can move off that. It'd save a little bit. It's reasonable. It's on the table. I would say that. I believe it's on the table. Will it happen? I don't think so, but I think it's on the table. I think it's fair. That's scary if they stay with Barnes. Look, Barnes ain't that bad. Barnes is not that bad. He had a rough game, okay? He had a rough game. But Barnes does a lot of good. You know what I mean? He does a lot of good for him. They just gotta get the rest of the defense back to who they're trying to be to make it work. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, man? All right? Bear down, Dose. All right, bro. We can't leave on that. I got to get out of here, but we ain't going to leave on that. Somebody give me something else to leave on. Okay, I hope Ray Agnew stays assistant GM. All right, we can work with that. we can work with that. Tom, good luck in the playoffs, man. I may or may not be watching because I don't really want to watch, but Dan said you have to watch. It has to pain you. You have to feel the pain that you didn't get there. You have to deal with it. I'm like, Dan, calm down. He didn't say it like that. But that's what I took away from Dan. He's like, I'm not trying to watch this, but I freaking have to watch this. I have to watch them play. That way I can be mad. All right, dude. Hey, man, look, I may just not watch. You know what I mean? I'm not the head coach. I just might not watch. I'm straight up. But no, I probably will watch that game. And again, if I have to pick a side, I'm rooting for Chicago. Is it crazy I took that as direction from Dan too? Yo, bro. Yo, he's saying that, but oh shoot, man. I guess I do have to watch these games. Like, man, I kind of wanted to skip a few of these, but now we're in it. Like we're freaking in it now. I guess we are watching playoff games. Guess we got to live stream them now. Dang, dude. Took it the same way, bro. I love Dan, man. Dan's awesome. Also, letting on this, 4 straight winning seasons. Hey, look, it's not a great way to have the 4th one, but that's our team record. 4 straight winning seasons, team record. Congratulations. That's pretty darn good, man. That speaks volumes to our inconsistency, but that's pretty good. I'll take that. I love it. I've loved Dan's mentality since day one. Sometimes you get a little frustrated. It's like, oh, playing these guys, we're going to get hurt. But his mentality as a coach is awesome. I've loved it since day one, man. Season opener, I believe it was, San Francisco. I was there when he went for it on his own side of the field, down like 28. And ever since that moment, that's still my favorite Dan Campbell moment. I love this dude, man. Like, this guy does not care how much we lose by. He is fighting. They are fighting. That's the vibe he's going to give off. There's like no other way around it. That's just who we are going to be. And he's continued that every year. I freaking love it. I love it, dude. I love Dan Campbell, man. This guy's awesome, dude. This guy's awesome. I'm trying to embrace this, too, because we've seen a lot of what the heck is going on at head coach. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't been through all of it. I know there was, like, really bad years before. I haven't been through as much bad. Like, Schwartz was the first guy I remember. And that was fun. Schwartz was fun. But, because we threw the ball all the time, we couldn't run the ball. Like, in hindsight, it's like, oh, okay, we were pretty horribly built here. But the Caldwell era was frustrating. My goodness, that was frustrating at the time. Did pretty well in hindsight, but dude, some of those were hard to watch because, like, I don't know that Caldwell cares what's going on. He obviously did. It was just his mentality. It was just his, just the way that he kind of gave off himself to everybody. Then he had Patricia, and obviously that didn't work at all. I was bought in though. I was like, this thing's gonna happen, and it did not happen. Now he's doing his thing with Ohio State. Congrats. I'm glad he's doing his thing. But this guy, this dude's one of one, man. This guy is the reason that I believe things are always going to work out, dude. You just have to, because Dan's just like, you just believe it, dude. Like, this guy's just going to find a way. And he gave a quote, I think it was, that was similar to like what Harbaugh gave as a Michigan fan, right? I remember when Harbaugh said that thing about Ohio State where it was like, we're going to beat them or we're going to die trying. And that was before all the, potential cheating things. But ultimately, I mean, they did it. I mean, they did it. It was like, hey, we're going to do everything we can to beat this freaking team. And Dan said something like that recently. I was like, oh, my goodness. This is why I love this dude, man. This is fantastic. Schwartz being the beginning for you. I joined the Air Force right after 116. Yeah, dude, Schwartz was the beginning, and it wasn't even like the beginning. It was 2011. I mean, I probably watched some games before them, but I don't remember any of it. 2011 was it, man. So, I mean, I remember 2012. That was devastating. 2013 was rough because I think we got out kind of hot that year, and that thing just no. Amir Abdullah. Yeah, dude. Well, not Amir Abdullah. It would have been was that wasn't Amir. That was trying to think who's that dude that put the little shake on. Was that 2015? 2015 Amir Abdullah? Yeah, dude. We had some rough years, man. We had some good starts, then it just anyway. We're gonna get out of here, man. I appreciate y'all joining. I'll see you guys soon. We'll get into some of these more details. Check out Dose of Draft. It's a YouTube channel. We're dropping draft content over there if you want some. So Theo Riddick was a dog. I love Theo Riddick, man. Theo Riddick was a dog, dude. I'd bring him back today. I'd re-sign him today. Like right now. I said, I don't think Linderbaum's going to become a free agent. That's kind of my mindset on it. I don't think he's going to become a free agent. But you're saying if he leaves, I mean, I'd like to do it. I kind of lie. I like to do it. I'll have to look into more of the financial. I mean, he's going to cost a ton, but I would have no issues if they could somehow make it work. I mean, honestly, you figure everything else out. You get that guy, everything else feels pretty good. If you can financially make it work, you're going to throw some restructures anyway. If that was the investment the Lions made and they were like, hey, man, we kind of locked up a lot of money here, I'll live with it. I'll live with knowing that's where they did it. I'd rather that over any other position. Do that for your center. I can live with that. We'll make it work. We got that guy. I'd be fine with that. No issues. I'm on board. I'm on board, man. Miss Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was fun. All right, let's go. Let's get out of here, man. I appreciate you joining. I'll see you guys soon. We out. Check out Dose of Draft, man. I didn't click the button. Now I click.